All right, welcome to another episode of Percolating Thoughts. This one's going to be quite an interesting one, and I'd have to admit, Belle actually presented this idea to me, or not to me, but to do, which is really cool. On this episode, we're going to talk about, like, what if apologies weren't about the other person, and go into some kind of like subcategories of how to, just some what ifs, that sort of thing. Belle, do you oftentimes catch yourself apologizing to people for no reason or apologizing when you probably shouldn't be apologizing?
100%. I think in this day and age, it's just expected that you apologize, or if you're a people pleaser, you kind of stick in that role of, well, they expect me to just apologize or do what they ask or whatever. So I think as a people pleaser, I am more inclined to apologize, even if it has absolutely nothing to do with me. I think it's funny because on the other hand, when people apologize to me for things that are out of their control or them accidentally bumping into me, my first words out of my mouth are always, you have nothing to apologize for.
Hmm.
But I will always apologize for something that I probably don't need to.
Right,
What about
absolutely. 100% agree. Even if it's something that's beyond my control, like, hey, I'm sorry about that, or if it's some issue that another person caused, I'm sorry about that. Another thing that I find people like always apologizing for is like here recently too, especially in the last 5 years, is like, oh, I'm sorry for your loss. Why are you apologizing? I mean, their time has come. I don't know how to respond to that. That's
it?
one thing, but also at the same time, it's like it's nothing. I know you can feel upset for another person and that sort of thing, but just little notes of apologizing for stuff that it's just kind of like, whoa, and I fall victim to that all the time. So, um, why do you think people apologize like as much as they do?
I think it's just our society. We are in this society where we cater towards other people. And we also are a generation that is very out of touch with people. So we're very isolated, or we're on social media. We're not connecting like our parents were in person. And so a lot of these interactions, and I feel like a lot of apologies happen online versus face to face like they would have for our parents or our grandparents. And so I think over apologizing has become something to kind of like a coping mechanism for people like us who have seen the negative effect of not saying sorry, and not wanting to have to deal with fallout of what could happen. And sure, for those listening, you could say Leah and I have trauma, and that's fine, totally, period, we all do. But I think especially friendship trauma, go back, listen to our friendship episodes. But it's kind of like this idea of if I don't apologize, then I'm gonna lose something
Hmm.
instead of just apologizing for genuine reasons, which kind of rolls into the other question that we were going to talk about. Um, but yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I like you said, it is a very generational thing, and I was even thinking about that too. Like, um, being in getting in disputes with some of my family who are not Generation Z or even a millennial. Um, it's harder for them to apologize and take ownership for certain things. So instead, saying sorry is like performative, and it's almost like us as Gen Z people are trying to make up for the fact that, hey, we recognize that this is not your fault. We recognize that, you know, um, that you're going through a lot and just, being apologetic for understanding feelings too. Like, I don't know, Belle earlier, just for comparison or to give an example, Belle was saying, she's had a hard week and, I think somewhere along the lines of our text or something, I'm sure if you scroll through, is like, I probably said, I'm sorry you're feeling that way, or, I'm sorry it's been a rough week, or, I understand. And that's really all it is just we kind of understand going through hard weeks or, having those experiences.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's almost sometimes relatable when you say,
Yeah.
"Oh, I'm sorry," or you apologize because maybe like not every sorry correlates to you doing something wrong, but can be like that connection point like, "Hey, I'm sorry that you're going through this. I just went through this 2 weeks ago," or something
Right.
like that. Like,
Right. Or like
yeah,
how can I help you? Or is there
right,
anything I can do? That sort of thing.
right. Like
Connection.
opening a door between the two. And that kind of rolls into the next question of like, I mean, I don't know if I can say do you, but I think there is a difference between saying sorry and feeling sorry,
Hmm.
especially in young adult friendships.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's, I mean, we're going to keep saying this is a generational thing, but I think this part of it is, and then there's also a boomer part of it that's like their sorry is very different than Gen Z's sorry. But
Yeah.
like there's definitely plenty of times when like someone's gotten upset at me and I've apologized and not felt it because I wasn't actually sorry, but it was the only option for them to like move on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I might feel bad about that, but I don't feel sorry because what I did, like I think there is a part of us that's like how you felt perceived in that situation is not how I felt like I was being perceived. And then you kind of go into this back and forth with the person of like, well, that's not what I meant. And so there's been plenty of times when I got into those arguments and just been like, you're so right. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna call my mom and bitch about it instead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I feel like yeah, like you said, like saying sorry is just trying to um get out of a situation that you don't want to drag on. Or, give another person satisfaction and validating their feelings for a situation that you felt like you weren't maybe in the wrong in. And then like feeling sorry is, obviously having those genuine feelings. Oh yeah, you're right. You were right. That was my bad. I didn't mean to do that. I'm sorry if I made you feel that way. That sort of thing. I feel like if someone were really sorry, they would show, like, there's acts of service and they would, like, show you that they're really sorry, like, instead of just telling you, whether it be, like, throughout the course of a few days, a few weeks, whatever. But they would show you that they're really sorry. It's more than just saying it. And if you're saying it, not doing anything about it, or trying to make amends about something that you're feeling sorry for, then that's the difference.
Right. No, I agree. I think that, you know, sorries can be disingenuous, and I'm definitely one that's like going to give you a million and one chances. My friends won't, but I will. And I think a lot of that willingness too is like I want to see if you're putting in the effort to kind of fix that part that, maybe we faltered on or see that change. Because I do believe that people can change. And I do believe that there's growth and we're all still growing up. We're all still like young. Now, if it's for adults, I'm a little less lenient, but um yeah, I think it's like I want to see your action over sorry.
Yeah.
So even in the times when I'm not as genuine with the sorry, I do try and make sure like in that week to do something that shows like I've moved past this, I'm not upset, and I don't want you to think this is like hindered anything um between. But I do think that boomers have a way of saying sorry that's awful and they aren't sorry, and I think like that is the like when your parents are like, well, I'm sorry, la la la, I did that and la 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 and la 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 and like it's that like defensive sorry that I think is kind of when it's
It
harder.
it's like the I'm right, you're wrong type of thing because I'm your parent or because I'm your superior, like I'm right, you're wrong, that sort of thing.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, that ties into our like original question, what if sorries weren't about the other person?
Mhm.
And I think you always hear growing up like your reaction is like your like is on you. Although I don't fully like agree with that. I do agree with that in the sense of like me saying sorry for something that you need to hear or whatever. I there are times that you say it for yourself, like, you know what? For my peace, my sanity, the sake of this conversation, I'm gonna say I'm sorry.
Mhm.
And how the other person feels about that sorry is up to them to decide.
Right.
Um, but that's definitely something that comes with age and all the fun things.
Absolutely. And I mean that even, covers a lot of the next point too, is like at what point do sorries become performative instead of restorative? So it's just kind of like um, the I'm right, you're wrong mentality, not doing anything in terms of wanting to make up for that. Um, I feel like, I was in a situation here about less than a year ago where a few of my coworkers and I had gotten into some sort of little tiff. And one of my coworkers tried to hold it over our heads that they had more authority and that sort of thing. Um, at the time, the sorries seemed performative. Even the explanations of why we had this tiff or whatever.
Right.
Um, But from that, we have kind of like learned and grown. And so there will be times where I go to this coworker to make sure that we don't ever go to that point again. This coworker will come to me to make sure that we're in the clear on, my end of things. And I feel like that's a restorative apology. Like that's a kind of, hey, I want to make sure that our work relationship is good to go and that we are doing what we need to do to make this business run efficiently. So I mean, performative is also for sake of making you feel good too. I mean, yeah, unless you have anything else to add to that, that's what I got.
No, I agree. I think yeah, I think more people are acts of service over words of affirmation. And so I think, especially in this day and age, sorry is kind of like a band-aid on the situation. Whereas, like, the continued growth of yourself and in that relationship or in that conversation, it means much more. Am I checking in? Am I trying to change what maybe triggered that other person to get mad or to restore this friendship or anything like that? Whereas like performative is like, okay, 2 weeks later after we've had this conversation, you did it again. And that's kind of where you have to like sit back and reevaluate and try and see, is this for me? Does this make sense? What could make it better for like us? And that kind of goes into like setting boundaries within yourself of like within the word sorry, because I do think that we throw it around a lot and you don't have to tell people your boundary around the word I'm sorry or sorry, but you can set it in your head like, you know what? This person said I'm sorry and I will accept that for now, but I want to watch this like I want to see them do it differently next time the situation comes up or like you
Right.
said your coworker, checking in to make sure that you're on the same page, that there's not a overwhelming buildup of tension leading to another blow up, which can definitely be really hard in a workplace, where you know there are superiors or there are people who've been there longer. And also, I think with work, kind of, and this is something that I have kind of decided, I'm there to do my job,
Right.
and then we can be friends.
Hmm.
And I think that's changed a lot of my perspective on some of the people I work with or I have worked with. Like it's okay if not everybody is my friend because I'm here to work and I'm going to prioritize that, especially if I don't agree with you,
Right.
especially if you've had those issues. So I think like that is the boundary too that you can set in situations like that where it's like, okay, there was a blow up, there was no change. Um, like sitting down and remembering like you are working for you and because you like your job or because you enjoy the environment outside of that situation and putting work then friend. Because at the end of the day, everybody you work with isn't always going to be your friend. And that's okay, just as long as it's like cordial enough in the office or whatnot. But I think, work is a whole other subcategory of sorries that like it's harder because you're not connected to them like
Right.
you may be with friends or your family. Um, and that can also be like a set of boundaries of like where your loyalties lie. You
Exactly.
know?
Yeah. No, and you covered like the next point really well too. I feel like even setting those boundaries is just kind of like as long as you do set those after you say your apology, as long as you do, that's what leads to the restorative relationship and apology and everything. So it's just kind of like that's kind of the goal.
Right.
Um, and then, move on from there. Um, and you kind of touched on the next question, but like what would happen if we didn't apologize at all? And you had, hit the hammer on the nail real quick. Well, good. So and it was just kind of like tensions would continue to arise, and that's just not a comfortable situation for anybody, especially in an already uncomfortable environment. Whether it be family, whether it be a coworker, a friend, you don't want that to eventually pull you apart from someone who might be good for your life or someone who, um, is trying to make you a better person, that sort of
Right.
thing. But, and it's also just, you don't want that. I honestly wouldn't want that on my conscience, just to
Yeah.
walk in a room and be like, yeah, they didn't say sorry for the wrong they did to me, and I'm not happy with them. That would just make me have so much anger. Say we're at like a happy event, I would have so much anger, and that would all I would be focusing on instead of the good that's going on.
Right.
So I think apologies, full circle, um, are needed. They're not needed all the time, and they're not needed to validate anybody's feelings,
Mhm.
but um, I think they're needed to grow and to restore. I don't know what's your opinion on that whole thing.
I think apologies are needed when it matters to you, if that makes sense. Like, yes, you should say sorry, but the restoration, like the I'm sorry towards restorative relationships with people has to matter to you.
Right.
And I think it also kind of ties into, someone can say they're sorry to you and you can take it how you want. And, you kind of have to work through what you want from that person too. I think it goes both ways. Like, if somebody says they're sorry and you obviously aren't seeing the action, that's up to you to decipher on your own. It's not up to you to go up to them and still be like, you fucking suck.
Hmm.
Like you said, like constantly seeking an apology or validation for your feelings. Like, I think it's very set in how you interpret it going forward. Um, and I think that it's more important that somebody apologizes versus not, because if they don't, you're more likely to hold on to that anger and upset and hurt than you would if they were to have apologized, or if you had allowed them the space to apologize for whatever it is they did. Um, but also tying back to the beginning, not every apology is necessary. If you're a people pleaser, not like saying sorry for something that's 1000% not your fault. I mean, I'm still learning that. Um, isn't necessary either. And so I think the world would be a lot meaner if we didn't apologize. And, you know, I, not to like bring religion into this, but like my thought process is on all of it, because this kind of ties into forgiveness too. Um, is if God forgave them, then it's not up to me to keep holding that in my heart. Like, it's not doing anything for me. So again, that also ties back to boundaries. So like this whole entire conversation kind of rolls through who you are and your boundaries and why, like how you perceive sorries. Um, and also understanding that you don't have to accept every apology, but you do have to like kind of make peace for yourself to not like wallow in that.
All right, so that kind of wraps up our conversation on, just apologies, what happens if we don't have them, what happens if we do have them, why they're great, why they're bad. But if you have anything you would like to contribute to this conversation, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. We'd love to hear from you. We always love to hear from you. Yeah, but anyway, without further ado,